Hello, my dear friend. Today, before I begin the story, I want to talk to you. Just you. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt that you're not good enough because your English isn't strong? Have you ever stayed quiet in a room full of people, not because you had nothing to say, but because you didn't know how to say it in English? Have you ever felt afraid to speak, afraid to make a mistake, or afraid people will laugh at you? If yes, I understand you. And today's story is for your self confidence. You see, learning English is not just about grammar and rules, it's about believing in yourself. It's about connecting with people, with dreams, with the world, and I promise. By the end of this video, you will not only learn some beautiful English sentences, but you will also learn something powerful about kindness and about yourself. So, take a deep breath, put your worries down, and let me tell you a story. A story that begins with an empty lunchbox. Before I tell you today's story, I want you to imagine something. You're sitting in your classroom. Everyone around you opens their lunchboxes. The smell of delicious food fills the air. And then you look down, and your own lunchbox is empty. How would you feel? Embarrassed? Hungry? Or maybe invisible? That's where our story begins. There was a boy named Ravi. He studied in class 8 in a small government school. He was thin, quiet, and always sat in the last row. He never disturbed anyone. He never complained. And he never fought with anyone. Every day during lunch break, Ravi would go to the corner of the playground and sit alone under an old tree. He would open his lunchbox slowly, pretending to eat something, but inside, there was nothing. Yes, his lunchbox was always empty. One day, a boy named Arjun, his classmate, noticed this. He said, "Hey Ravi, why don't you eat with us?" Ravi smiled shyly and said, "Oh, I already ate at home." But Arjun could see Ravi was lying. Still, he didn't say anything that day. The next day, Ravi's teacher, Ms. Mira, entered the class. She was the English teacher, strict but kind. She loved teaching through stories and games, but she always noticed one thing about Ravi. He rarely spoke. When she asked a question, he would just look down. When others laughed, he smiled silently. One day, Ms. Mira said, "Ravi, can you please read the next line from the book?" Ravi stood up. His hands were shaking. He looked at the page, but the letters danced before his eyes. He tried to read, but no words came out. The whole class went silent. After class, Ms. Mira called him softly. "Ravi, is everything okay?" He nodded quickly. "Yes, ma'am. Everything is fine." But she knew something was not fine. That afternoon, as everyone was eating lunch, Ms. Mira walked through the school corridor, and there, near the playground, she saw Ravi sitting alone under that same old tree. He was opening his lunchbox again. She watched quietly from far away. Inside the lunchbox, nothing. Just a small spoon and empty air. Her eyes filled with tears. She slowly walked up to him and sat beside him. "Ravi," she said gently, "why don't you eat?" Ravi closed his lunchbox quickly and said, "Ma'am, I'm not hungry today." Ms. Mira smiled softly and said, "Ravi, sometimes you don't need to hide pain to look strong." Ravi didn't understand. He looked down, his eyes wet. Then Ms. Mira opened her own lunchbox and said, "Would you like to share my lunch? Just a little." Ravi hesitated, but then, slowly, he took a small bite. It was the first real lunch he had in many days. And with that small bite began a small friendship. From that day, Ravi started sitting near the staff room during lunch. Sometimes Ms. Mira would talk to him, not about studies, but about life, about dreams. She slowly learned that Ravi's father worked as a rickshaw driver, and most days they had very little food at home. That's why his lunchbox was empty. But even then, Ravi never complained. One day, Ms. Mira asked him, Ravi, what do you want to become when you grow up? He smiled shyly and said, Ma'am, I want to speak English like you, because when people speak English, everyone listens. Ms. Mira was silent for a moment. Then she said, You will, Ravi. You will speak English, and people will listen. Ravi looked up. For the first time, he believed her. And maybe, for the first time, he believed in himself, too. And that's how Ravi's journey began. A journey from silence to words, from emptiness to hope. But what happened next, the day everything changed, you'll know in part 2. And until then, keep learning, keep smiling, and keep improving.